I have lots to talk about today and not too much time to talk in, so let's see how fast I can get through this. Hi, I'm Lily, welcome back to my knitting podcast. I'm lilykate makes on Instagram and I'm a full-time knitwear designer who uses this channel to share what I've been making, what I've been designing, things I've been planning, just general thoughts on the knitting-y, designy, creative kind of world. So yeah, I'll get straight into it. Starting with what I'm wearing, which was a kind of joint project between my mum and I. She knit the body, I did all the edgings and the sleeves. This is my brightest tee, which I understand is very misleading because this could not be duller. So this one version is known as the dullest tee. But anyway, the original pattern from 2021, yes 2021, was very bright, pictured here. It was pretty much as bright as you could possibly get, neon pink, very in your face, but I loved the classic fit of it, and I do still wear it on the rare occasion that we get a bit of nice weather here in the UK. Yeah, really like the classic fit of that. However, the sleeves were they were the tiniest of little cap sleeves on the original, which I do still really like. However, I've done a few t-shirts this year. Really got into my groove with them, doing a lot of this kind of thing, and decided that an updated sleeve wouldn't go amiss. So here we have the brightest, or the dullest brightest tee you ever did see, with the updated 2024 sleeves, hair knitted into them as always, that just have a little bit more coverage. They're still a cap sleeve, you know, they're definitely not a long sleeve still, but they just have that little bit more coverage there. And my usual detail of having short rows to shape the sleeve cap, obviously it's all seamless, but some decreases as well down the outside just so that it doesn't stick out there, because that is one of my many pet peeves, is when t-shirts like stick out, and it does often happen, so there's shaping in there to stop that happening. And I updated the pattern to include the new sleeves, so yeah, anyone who bought the pattern way back when should have already received an updated version, or if you bought via Etsy or something, then just drop me an email and I'll send you the update. But yeah, it's been nice to kind of revive a pattern that I think, when I discussed this in my last video, but when I feel like something, there's still legs in it, you know, there's still like, it's not like something, oh that was done years ago and I don't like it anymore and it's done. There's still a lot of elements of the design that I like, just needs a couple of little tweaks. And the original version is still there in the pattern anyway, for anybody who does prefer that. But yeah, it's just nice to have something that feels new without having to be like started from scratch each time. Feels new but isn't too new. So onto something that actually is new, worn here by a Dolly Dearest. Currently with no buttons, because for ages I couldn't find the buttons. I bought them months and months ago. I was like, oh my god, they're going to be perfect to go with this yarn combination, and then couldn't find them. I have since found them, but I haven't got around to adding them on yet, so I'll just show you those first actually, because they are, I'm sure you'll agree that it was worth the wait. I refused to sew on any other buttons whilst I knew these were kicking about somewhere, and of course they were at the bottom of a yarn basket, of course. I'm sure you'll agree that they would be perfect on there when I eventually get round to it. So yeah, this is a completely new design. This is my Close to Me cardigan that I actually started on the plane en route to Iceland when I went to meet Anastasia, when we then went on to Toronto, Knit City, so it was a really fun trip. I always remember where I was when I cast something on. It's kind of like the project is associated with the memory, which is really nice. And with this one, I remember being on her sofa in the morning wanting to knit on this, and Anna telling me, no, you've got that sleeve to knit on something else, and not letting me do any more work on this until I finished my sleeve, because she knew I had to get it done. So yeah, I did finish both sleeves and then was able to carry on with this. So I used my Axis by lilykate yarn, which is a worsted weight yarn, held together with a strand of Cumulus, because I knew I wanted to do something in this bright colour, and then I just kind of by chance saw it next to a ball of the Cumulus and was like, that could be pretty. So holding the two strands together, I think it looks really lovely when you use two colours that have a slightly, kind of just like a bad match. Like if they're too good a match, I think it just looks a little bit flat. And if they're completely off, then the contrast is too high, and then that kind of just detracts. But when they're just subtly different, similar but definitely not identical, I think you get this really nice mild effect that just, oh, I love it. So yeah, really happy with this fabric now. This yarn has actually been, or this yarn combo has actually been featured on my channel before in its previous iteration, which failed. And then I tried that version again, which also failed. It was basically just the cardigan, the concept that I had for the cardigan design, I wanted it to be V-neck, but then it was like the stitches wanted to be a round neck. And then I ended up with this weird item that wasn't quite looking right as either, and I was like, I'd already knit it twice, knit the whole yoke twice by this point, and just had to call it quits and decide, no, that can be for something else. Move on. Just, you've got to know when to draw the line and just move on, because otherwise you can go going over the same item 20 million times. So anyway, this was its third incarnation, and one that I'm finally happy with. So this cardigan, take it off to show you, has double knit edgings around the front. I kind of wanted it to take the same box as my Calm Down cardigan, like hence using things like the double knit edgings, but be a much quicker knit and have some different details. So I used 6mm needles for this, so it's not like, you know, super chunky, ridiculously quick and heavy, but it is a bit quicker. So yeah, I have the double knit edgings around the front, and then my favourite detail is how the shoulder shaping is incorporated in to this garter stitch section. So they kind of have the garter stitch panels on the shoulder, and then by using a couple of different short row methods and short row rates, it kind of means that the shoulder slope is built into that. As is often the case for me, I have an idea for how the maths can work, and that kind of dictates how the actual visuals of the design will go. Like, that's just how my brain works. So luckily it turned out really nice. I'm very happy with it. So then this garter detail on the shoulder, I would not wear it over this, but for demonstration purposes. So this garter detail on the shoulder here, it gives you, I'm trying to bob down, this sort of diagonal line here is then echoed. Excuse the creases, it has been folded for a little while. But garter detail is echoed here so that it kind of sits at the same angle as here, and then on the sleeves as well. So all the edges are finished like that, and then I didn't want to introduce a rib or anything. I thought there was enough going on, so the double knit edgings. So I'm very happy with it. This is my Close to Me cardigan, and I actually do have a second one on the needles already, because I made a few minor tweaks. Slightly changed the neck width because it was a little too wide, and just made some minor tweaks. So I thought I'll make a second version alongside my test knitters, and now I can't for the life of me remember where I've put it. But I have a busy week of lots of sorting and moving and shuffling things around coming up, so I'm sure it'll turn up. But I actually used a much darker fabric for that one, and these were the swatches. So as I said, some combinations work great and some really don't. So these were all my Axis by lilykate yarn, held together with Fyberspates Cumulus in various different combinations. And the one that I actually ended up using, it's on a separate swatch which I must have left upstairs, but I actually ended up using the dark grey Axis with a really dark kind of greyish purple Cumulus. Which so how many swatches are here? 6 or 7, and it was only on that next one that I actually landed on something that I was really happy with. Because I think you can't predict exactly how they're going to look knit up. You can hold things next to each other, twist them together, try all manner of things, and it just doesn't have quite the same effect as actually knitting it. So yes, several swatches required there. But anyway, my test knitters are working on this one. It will be available in August. It was originally going to be on the 20th of August, however I now have a photo shoot planned on that day with Lanx, my freelance job, and that was the only date in the whole month that everybody involved could do. So Gonna have to reshuffle the pattern release date for that, possibly till the week after. I think the week before would be pushing it a little bit, so I'll just push that back by a week so it'll be available in late August sometime. Anyway, the test knit versions are looking really lovely. A couple of people have actually used 2 different colours, which I was kind of deliberating whether that was a good idea for my second sample or not, and then I thought, no, just do a simple one, because I feel like the colour could be quite distracting on this, and I know from past experiences and what people have told me, feedback I've received, that if something is done in a bright colour and that bright colour is not to your taste, it can be really difficult to see past that. So I know that this might put off a lot of people. And obviously if it's something that I've designed and this is my job, I don't want something, I want to try and maximise the success of it, of course. So I think doing a neutral version is not a bad idea. So I'm definitely doing that. And then I may see about asking a sample knitter to make a third version in the two-tone, because I do really like it. I think because it's of these sections and the fact that there's the diagonal lines, it does lend itself to it, but I think personally I like the idea of two-tone, but like maybe high saturation, low contrast, like how you like to use a red and pink together, either high saturation or really low saturation, like 2 pale neutrals together. I don't particularly want high contrast, I don't think that's for me, but yeah, it does really lend itself well to working up in a two-tone, and they do look quite impressive. So maybe that's another project to add to the very extensive list that I have on the go. And at the moment everything's kind of fitting with being either super bright or very dull. I kind of don't really go much in between. Maybe that'll change come autumn when I have a few softer colours planned, but for the moment it's kind of staying bright. I think this one looks a lot brighter in person. That I'm trying not to look at the viewfinder there, but it looks kind of more muted in the viewfinder than it actually is. Also, Dolly is very wonky. Stand up straight. Don't know, maybe she needs a shuffle around. Close to Me cardigan coming late August. Exact date TBC. And the Brightest tee already available. That's those 2 covered. So sticking with the same colour palette, my next project is not far off finished, and I should just get a grip and actually finish it. This is my movement tee. A second sample here, as you can see, it's not too far off finished. That I started this on the way to Belgium last month, which you can watch all about in my recent vlog of our little knitty girls trip to Belgium. I started it on the way there because I knew there was potential to actually get a lot of knitting done on that trip, which rarely happens. But I thought if it's something that I'm trying to design and have to think about and be writing down calculations and trying on and assessing whether things are right, if I have to do all of that, it's just not going to happen. I'm not going to make the most of the amount of time that I have there. Whereas if I can just sit down and crack on and not need to think about it too hard, then I might actually make some decent progress. So a good chunk of this, I think I made it a couple of stripes into the main body. This was done whilst in Belgium, on the beach or in restaurants or while we were just chilling. It's a really enjoyable knit. So I used my movement tee pattern from a couple of months ago. When did that come out? May, I think. In the same yarn. However, I did something really quite stupid. So my original version was navy and white, but it was a block of navy and then 3 white, like white, navy, white, navy, white. So a good chunk of the whole item was cream white, whatever. I think it was supposed to be an off-white kind of shade. And per my calculations, that meant that approximately 30% of the whole item was done in the white shade. I used less than 4 balls of the navy, and then I actually had 4 balls of this shade. And so I thought, right, well, it's the same yarn. This is Sandnes Duo, I think it's a 50-50 or 60-40. I can't remember, but a cotton wool mix. I think it's 50-50. DK weight yarn, really enjoy knitting with it, really like it, like wearing it. I thought, great, I can make another one. Just need to choose a different contrast colour. Got 4 of this. However, what stupid me failed to take into account was that because I did 3 stripes of white on the navy version, so 30% of it was the contrast-ish, 70% was the main colour. On this one, because I didn't intend to do the triple stripes again, those 4 balls were going to have to cover more than 70%. It was going to have to be more like 85%. And for some reason, this only dawned on me when I was a good chunk through the body and thinking, hang on, I've not got that much left of this yarn. But I'm using the exact same needle and the same yarn at the same size and everything as the first time. Like, why is that not adding up? Idiot over here. Yeah, so I didn't think I would be playing Yarn Chicken, and I am. It's a very short version of that long-winded story. So it's kind of just sat on the needles waiting for me to deal with that, because this is what I have left. However, I do also have a few swatches, at least 3 swatches of this yarn where I was trying out the yarn combinations for the stripes, tried some other stitch pattern. I can't remember what my first one was from, but I definitely have another one. So I'm going to have to rip back all of those 3 swatches, have all the little scrappy bits of yarn and see how far they can go to make it as long as I possibly can, because I think I've just done that stripe. I suppose it's not too far. No, I suppose it's more like there, isn't it? I think ideally it would have another stripe and then the rib. But it might end up being a little more cropped because I can't engage my brain, clearly. So we'll see. But the only modification that I made compared to the original item, if you're wondering, that looks different, is that on these stripes, I just pearled the round where you change colour. So it makes this nice little raised effect, which I quite like. And I also I certainly don't dislike the way the inside looks. I mean, obviously it's a little bit raggedy at the moment because all the ends are there, but you know what, I think you could get away with wearing it that way round too. If I weave in my ends neatly enough, sewn those hems down, do they look inside out? I don't know, I think if I do a neat enough job of it and once it's been blocked, I think you may well get away with that. Not that I particularly need a reversible item, you know, it's perfectly fine the way it is, but yeah, just a little thought there. I need to just get on with this, finish it in time for the maybe half a day of decent weather that we may have this month, next month, and then winter, so woohoo. But anyway, this is my movement tee using Sandnes Duo for the main colour and 2 strands of Fyberspates Cumulus. 2 strands held together for the stripes, and this is the same yarn I held together with an orangey toned axis for this one. So this project is made of leftovers and it ties in nicely, like I've got a little capsule wardrobe thing going on, so go me. And then to continue with the colour palette, which sort of wasn't intended, but evidently I am consistent in the colours I gravitate towards at the moment, we have a little pair of socks. So I spotted this yarn in Toronto. It was from Botanical Yarns, who is actually based in Yorkshire, which is, I think she's based about 50 miles from me, and yet I got this yarn in Toronto, on the other side of the world. Standard. But it was obviously lovely to see a fellow northerner across the pond over there. Loved the colours together, so I picked up the mini skein set over there, which I've never done before. I don't own many minis, I've never done an advent before, so I don't particularly have much of a stash of them, but I know a lot of people do, and now I can see the appeal. I can see how it's very addictive. So I picked those up there, and then took the mini skein set with me when I was house sitting a few weeks ago, because I just like to take lots of yarn with me so that I can kind of just have it there to look at, and if inspiration strikes, then I can use it, but I don't have to. And my friend had been making a pair of socks, and I'd just been seeing a lot about socks, and I was like, you know what? It's been a while since I made a sock. It's about time. Maybe I should cast on a sock. And I also realised, this was another dim moment, like why do these things take me a while to register, that I've done a few sock patterns over the years. I've knit many socks since back in the day, but made a few sock patterns of my own using my kind of variation on a German short row heel, where I had extra room around the instep so that it isn't overly stretched around your heel, because I find that's a problem with a lot of short row heeled socks, that there just isn't enough extra room to accommodate the shape of a human foot, a heel, and it ends up really strained, and then if you have any sort of detail or pattern across the top of the foot, that just gets distorted and stretched around there, and it's just not good. So that's put me off doing short row heels in the past. And like, I'd always traditionally done a heel flap and gusset, and then had the idea in 2022 to add extra shaping so that I could use the regular German short row heel that looks nice and neat and symmetrical, but with an improved fit. So back in 2022 I wrote the pattern for my after hours socks, which are like a fishnet lace kind of pattern, then with this extra gusset shaping built in, and my sun up socks, which use the same kind of principle, but they're a ribbed sock with a cable detail. That was in 2022. And then in 2023, I again used the same detail on a ribbed sock, but with a colourwork and braid band around the cuff. So I've used this same method 3 times over the last couple of years, but I don't know why I thought it was a good idea to go with a lace, then a cable, then a colourwork sock, and not actually just do a plain one. Like, why? Silly me. So I thought it was about time that I used it on a plain sock. So here we have it. Hopefully you can see the extra shaping comes around this section. I filmed a video for my Instagram that I'll pop here showing where that sits on the foot, and it just means that this section from here to here isn't too strained. It has the extra shaping there so that it goes on comfortably over your foot without having to be big elsewhere. Or distorting any pattern across here, which obviously in this case there is no pattern, it's just a kind of my version of a vanilla sock with the shaping being the only detail there. So I just used a 1x1 ribbed cuff with a tubular edge, and then I did 5 round stripes throughout the socks, just the same cycle, repeating. I did originally make the toe the same colour as the heel, and then lost yarn chicken when it came to the second sock. So word of warning, if you want the toes to match the heels, you can't then use that colour within the sock. This was just for a standard 64 stitch sock. If it had been a 56 stitch sock, I would have been able to, so that was annoying, because I did kind of prefer it with the matching toe, but whatever. Could have made it solid in one of the other colours. Would that have looked better than a stripy toe? I don't know. But anyway, yeah, 64 stitch sock with the ribbed cuff, then the stripes, the heel placed carefully so that it falls within the centre of a stripe, which there are charts included for all the 3 different sizes in the pattern, just a blank chart with the increases shown on there, the increases and decreases, so that you can colour in where your stripes fall, so you know exactly where to start this shaping for the heel to fall symmetrically and be the correct colour. So, or the colour of your choice. So yeah, they are, as named by my friend's group chat, the LKM Finest Fit Socks, which abbreviates to LKM FFS. Because I was getting fed up of trying to think of a name of them that just described a simple sock that fits well. So that's what they are. Finest Fit Socks. Abbreviate that as you wish. Knitting Botanical Yarns sock yarn in the Toronto exclusive colourway, although I think she might have now made that available on the website, so very happy with those. And my final project to share before I need to leave in 15 minutes, best get a move on. So this is a whip that doesn't currently have a name. I've shared quite a bit of it on Instagram already, and I'm going through phases with this of being absolutely obsessed with it and then being like, need to change something. So it's already been on this is already its 3rd incarnation, as is often the case. 3 is the magic number, let's hope that it's right this time, 3rd time lucky. A colourwork yoke, which I do actually have a couple of colourwork yokes, but it's not necessarily something I've done loads of, but I do have a couple of them. Let me just shuffle that. So, I took a completely different approach with this one. That often I write up a pattern, I kind of do the calculations for the first section for my size, knit a bit, write a bit more, change some things as I go along, think, oh actually that might be a good idea, let's go in that direction, and amend it, all the while thinking about the grading but not actually doing it, but kind of keeping in mind, oh this is the section where for these sizes I will do this, or, you know, keeping it kind of in the back of my mind how I'm going to grade it, but it doesn't necessarily start from there. I don't start with a spreadsheet of graded patterns and then start knitting anyway. However, with this one, that's exactly what I did. Partly because I was trying to have a knitting break. That didn't go well. Because I had a very knitting intensive week of working on a secret project for my Qing Advent calendar pattern, which will be available later this year, obviously. All the information about that Advent is on my Instagram, about the general concept and the inspiration and everything, not the actual pattern. There's no photos of that yet, that'll be secret. But yeah, that was a project that kept me very busy, and I just wanted to get it done so that I could then get back on with other things. So I kind of intensively knit a bit more than I should, and really, oh my god, my shoulders and my neck are so tight, it is ridiculous, like it's so knotty there. I established that what I must be doing is doing the equivalent of going like this, like 50,000 times. Like, it's not huge movements or anything that's particularly aggravating my joints or anything like that, but it's just like tiny little movements, like twisting my arm a tiny bit all day. So yeah, I tried to have a knitting break. I was supposed to not knit for a week, that did not last, but hey ho. Anyway, point being, I was trying to write up a pattern before I actually started knitting it. And I've wanted to do a colourwork yoke for a while, but there's a lot about a lot of them that I don't like, basically. I really dislike it when a yoke looks like it's stretched across here. I don't think it's a very nice line to create like a horizontal line across your shoulders. I don't like it when the neck looks like it's pulled out wide and this is strained here. I don't like it when it looks like it's sort of too wide and then high at the front, but I also don't like the look of short rows at the back neck so that it's deeper at the back neck. Many things that I don't like. As is often the case if you've watched my channel before, there's kind of a long list of things I don't like that then informs where my designs go. So, another thing that I thought kind of bothers me with the concept of circular yokes and grading. So if you have a design that is based around some sort of vertical element that gets wider in like a wedge shape, and then potentially is incorporated across the rest of the design, or maybe not, but anyway, it's based around a wedge shape, the only way to make that item bigger across a size range where, let's face it, to grade a pattern inclusively, the biggest size needs to be roughly double the smallest, you know, rough approximation, but a 30-inch bust to a 60-inch bust. The only way to make it bigger is to either change the shape of those wedges, so say that's your original, the bigger ones need to get wider, in which case your colourwork stitch pattern is going to be disrupted and have to change across the sizes quite drastically, or you have to add extra wedges in, which would then mean that the neck is bigger for every size, but you know, human heads and necks don't change at the rate that bodies change, or you have to keep increasing for longer, and therefore if they all start the same, you just have to keep going out longer, and then yokes get very deep. Like, mathematically, that is the only 3 ways that those can get bigger, and I was like, that just doesn't really fit with how I tend to grade patterns, where I have different increase rates across the different sizes. Like, they're just incompatible. When something here dictates down here, like, it just doesn't quite work out like that. So my thinking was, it's very difficult to explain. This makes sense in my head, but probably not when I try to verbalise it. I wanted the elements to be independent of each other, but so that a stitch count here, and so that the increase rate basically could change at different points throughout the size range, so that on some sizes you might have to increase, like, it makes far more sense to increase rapidly from here to here, where you're going bigger, a lot bigger from your neck to your shoulders. This is a much more rapid increase than here to here. However, that point of out and down is going to be in a different point, on a different position within the yoke across the sizes, because obviously proportions change. So yeah, I kind of started with that and graded a generic yoke, just did some swatching to find a generic colourwork gauge for this yarn, which is onion knit mohair and wool, by the way, really enjoying that. Graded it first to have as a starting point, obviously knowing that I might make some tweaks to there, but kind of have the formulas in place to then figure out what how I could incorporate stitch patterns within that wouldn't impact on the grading, so that it would fit as I wanted it to. So I kind of did that first, then worked within certain multiples that would work across all the sizes, and then kind of started to plot the colour work from there. So it was a bit of a weird way of working around. I knew that I wanted it to kind of have a porcelain sort of vibe, just these colours, that's what jumped out to me, kind of like Delft pottery and that kind of thing. Yeah, that was where I started, and then kind of was colouring in the charts and figuring out what I wanted the actual stitch pattern to be. And now I absolutely love it, basically. I'm really happy with it, and I'm just deciding now. I started doing another round of dots, but I'm wondering whether I should not have done any more dots and just do plain now. It's actually helpful looking at it in the viewfinder rather than, because I don't know, something's different about looking at it in a screen or on a mirror compared to just in person. I don't think it needs more dots, so I think I've got some tinking to do there, because yeah, I don't think that's necessary. But the thing with how I've done all the grading first and with how the numbers work out is that obviously these big circles here are quite a statement. They're quite bold. However, you could easily, well, obviously I'll provide instructions in the pattern on how to do so, you could easily omit those circles and go straight into these polka dots, and the stitch counts will work. And basically no matter, you could also swap and add some more of the little liney stripy bits. So there's a few different options that you could do within this pattern, where the stitch counts will always work, and no matter at what point the increase rate changes for the size and everything, it will fit well and the stitch patterns will work. So yeah, that's kind of where I started with that. Hopefully it's all going to turn out really nicely. I know where I'm going to have the short rows, because I think it makes a much nicer look personally when you don't interrupt the shaping at the back there, because I really like the look when it is a true circle at this point and there isn't short rows added in there. I just think it makes it sit nicer on the body and looks nice and clean. So that's my preferred method there. And yeah, it's a really nice drapey fabric, knitting up pretty quick. This is the third version I've knit within a week. So hopefully I'll have that finished relatively soon. I have a hectic few weeks ahead with various life things and work things, so I'm not sure when I'll actually have the pattern written up, but hopefully it won't take too long. Probably going to include some colour work on the cuffs, but I don't think on the hem. I'm going to have it quite a loose, relaxed shape, because I think that really suits this yarn. It has a good amount of drape to it. I picked this up at Unravel Festival earlier this year from Ida's house. Had a stand there, never known their shop before, but it was nice to meet the ladies from there. This onion knit silk mohair, not silk mohair, mohair wool. It's 50-50 mohair wool. Apparently from Onion Knit, I should say. Danish brand. Apparently the idea was that it was supposed to kind of mimic the effect that you get with using a strand of 4-ply or a strand of wool held with mohair, but you don't have to hold them together. So I know a lot of patterns use DK weight yarn and it is 4-ply plus mohair. With this you don't need to hold them. So I really liked that idea, really liked the fabric it made. Would recommend the yarn. I've only used one ball of white, which is good because I only have one, that has done all of that plus swatching, so it goes quite a long way. 50 grams is 150 metres, so I think that's a decent amount considering I'm knitting it on 4.5 millimetres. Yeah, working on that. Should finish that. That stripy top there. Need to find the other version of that. Busy, and I need to sign off now and get going. So yeah, I need to get cracking now. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you're working on. We have a lilykate Makes Knit Along currently going on Slack, which has been really fun. Everybody sharing their projects, and we've had a knit night. Yeah, just a really nice chatty atmosphere of everybody getting along. So please do come join us. If you'd like the link, send me a DM on Instagram or an email and I'll send you the Slack chat link, and you feel free to join us there. It's all very informal, doesn't matter when you start. Hope you all have a lovely weekend, and thank you so much for watching.